Hey, podcast listeners. Today we're going to talk about a new way to view OCD. And before we begin, I just want to say if you haven't heard my stance on OCD before, which is likely, this is probably going to rock your world. And I don't mean that in a way to brag. I mean that as in, like, literally, you've probably never heard of this before. So let's dive in. I believe OCD develops when we dissociate from our anger. And that anger takes on a life of its own, becoming something that feels scary and out of control. This is why OCD entails so many checking behaviors. We're trying to gain a semblance of control over something we refuse to acknowledge or be responsible with, the anger we feel. OCD often manifests in fear of violent things and deadly things, such as germs, such as knives, running people over with our car, our house catching on fire, or someone breaking in. Hypochondria is also, in my book, OCD, as it entails believing that we have a potentially deadly illness. I also consider a preoccupation with or excessive fear of horror, as in horror movies, a type of OCD. OCD is fueled by the guilt we feel for all of our dissociated anger. The violent images are our brain's way to communicate our anger. Anger we need to connect with in order to bring about resolution through boundaries and assertiveness. When we deny the anger and push it down, it refuses to be ignored and feels more dangerous than ever. But when we move toward it, understanding why it's there and what it needs, the OCD diminishes because our brain no longer needs to be dramatic in order to get our attention. OCD can also play the role of a distraction when we want to be in denial of something. For example, I may have OCD that makes me obsess about the health of my teeth, which serves as a welcome distraction from the reality of my marriage. I regard disordered eating also to be a type of OCD in which there is a hyper focus on food and body, successfully distracting me from the pain of feeling unloved by a parent or a partner. Focusing on my teeth or body gives me a sense of agency, as opposed to the helplessness I would feel if I were to acknowledge how unloved I am by my parent or partner. It allows me to cling to the hope of finally being loved once I achieve that perfect smile or that perfect weight. It's not uncommon for many of my clients to be terrified of death and illness. They unconsciously believe their anger might kill someone, and they feel responsible for it. Yet once they connect with their anger, understanding it and knowing its validity, the guilt ameliorates and they feel peace. They're able to express the anger, to literally externalize it out of their body through fantasy words, as we in our therapy session help them to say what their body wants to say, raw and uncensored, to the person. We also help them to bring about expression of their anger through channeling it through boundaries and assertiveness with the actual person. There is another type of OCD-like behavior that I want to talk about now, and I see this particularly in abusive people. These people are often haunted by guilt for how they have been abusive or neglectful, especially to a child. But instead of confession and change, they seek instead reassurance from the very person or child that they have abused. They want that child that they have neglected to reassure them that they really are a good parent instead of actually becoming the good parent that that child needs. I witnessed this with my father, who, starting in my young adulthood, would tell me how haunted he was with the idea of death and particularly the concept of hell. I could never understand why an agnostic Jew would be so tormented and preoccupied with eternal punishment, and why he would tell me, of all people. I now see he unconsciously saw me as the reason for his guilt, and a part of him was tormented by how poorly he treated me. He implicitly was hoping I would respond, "Dad, you have no reason to fear hell. You're such a good parent and a good person." Yet I never did. Instead of admitting his guilt, apologizing, and doing better, he chose to stay in denial, as so many parents do. But he never did receive that reassurance from me. And today, at age 85, you can imagine that he might be more than a little afraid of his impending death. Many people have some form of OCD, especially according to how I define it, which includes disordered eating, hypochondria, and a pronounced fear of or attraction to horror. Most therapies for OCD focus on remediating symptoms, not addressing the roots of the OCD, as in the anger. When we finally allow ourselves to connect to the anger and validate it, it's no longer dangerous or guilt producing. When we make our anger conscious and we put it into words in fantasy, we master the anger instead of the anger mastering us and making us sick. The solution isn't necessarily easy, but it is simple and possible. OCD sufferers, there is so much hope. Let's participate in our own liberation by finally attuning to our inner child, letting her know that her anger is valid and we now feel it with her and for her, protecting and advocating for her, letting her know she matters and that she is no longer alone. She has us now. OCD is ultimately a symptom of self-betrayal, but it doesn't have to endure. Let's stop betraying ourselves. Let today be the day that things change. Thanks for listening.